is war map. Russian forces have captured Ray-Aleksandrovka. On the Slavyansk direction, Russian troops are completing the clearance of Ray-Aleksandrovka, the capture of which was announced today. The settlement was one of the key nodes of Ukrainian defense on the approaches to Nikolaevka and the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration, and the battles for it lasted for several months. What has changed in the area? After the capture of Nikiforovka, units of the Russian armed forces successively developed the offensive along the AFU's defense line and came directly to Ray-Aleksandrovka. In recent weeks, the main combat actions took place both in the settlement itself and on the adjacent heights, where Ukrainian formations had set up an extensive system of strong points. Control over the village allows to improve the tactical position of Russian troops and create additional threats to the Ukrainian group holding the line Nikolaevka, Raygorodok. At the same time, the possibilities for fire impact on the logistics routes of the armed forces of Ukraine in this sector of the front are expanding. However, it is too early to talk about any march on Slavyansk at the moment. In fact, it's not about the complete collapse of the Ukrainian defense on the direction, but about its gradual displacement from one of the forward nodes. For further advancement, Russian units will need to clear the adjacent forest strips, heights, and strong points covering the approaches to Nikolaevka and Raygorodok. At the current stage, the capture of Ray-Aleksandrovka should be considered as an important tactical success, improving the position of Russian troops on the Slavyansk direction, but not as an event that automatically opens the way for a rapid offensive on the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. Counterattacks near Lyman. On the Lyman directions, Russian units of the West group of forces have improved their tactical position on the approaches to Lyman itself, which has allowed assault troops to operate on almost all of its territory. However, it is too early to talk about full control, as the Russian armed forces are conducting battles with small groups. Taking the city in this way is a very difficult and lengthy task. To the north of the city, Ukrainian formations launched a series of counterattacks towards Stavki, as a result of which one of the approaches of the Russian armed forces to the city again came under the control of Ukrainian formations, which occupied Zverohoziye and regained control over this part of the Svyatogorsk Park. This happened simultaneously with the start of attacks by Ukrainian formations in the north in the area of Red Kudub. The situation on the entire wedge towards Svyatogorsk remains extremely tense, as the AFU is clearly trying to cut off this wedge in the area of Shandrigolovo along the Nitrius River. In turn, the Russian armed forces are trying to disrupt the logistics of Ukrainian formations with systematic strikes on crossings across the Seversky Donets River. Recently, the internet first appeared statements, and then footage of the destruction of a dam in Mayaki, through which Ukrainian formations supplied their group operating in the area of Lyman. After a hit by a FAB-3000, the crossing was heavily damaged, but it is suitable for restoration, as such embankments are generally very difficult to destroy even with high precision and powerful ammunition. The AFU tried to fill in the resulting crater, but the bulldozer was hit by an FPV drone. This once again shows that it is important not just to hit various objects, but also to monitor the AFU's attempts to restore them. Advance in the city. Konstantinovka. Units of the South Group of Forces are breaking the defense of Ukrainian formations in Konstantinovka on the same named direction. There are new successes in the urban development and on the flanks. Assault groups are expanding the zone of presence on the northeastern outskirts of the settlement, and have also cleared about half of the micro-district Gora, which is located on the approaches to Novodmitrovka. Nearby, the AFU has been driven out of several strong points. It is still difficult to launch attacks from the central industrial zones, as Ukrainian formations units periodically work on the ruins, and therefore it is difficult to gather forces there. Moreover, in the neighboring block of multi-story buildings, the AFU's concentration is still high despite the fact that Russian assault units are already operating near them. As the positions in Konstantinovka improve, the AFU forces operating in the area of Krasny and in the Chasovy Yar will be in a semi-encirclement. Although they continue to cause problems for the Russian armed forces, the tactical situation is getting worse for the Ukrainian formations every day. Until next update.